Hello and welcome to the Rippling Pages podcast. This is the podcast where we have a coffee with the world's most interesting writers to inspire your reading and your writing, and it's all crafted and curated by me, Liam Bishop. So this is more from our coffee and conversation with Lucy Caldwell that we recorded live last month, and we were talking about Lucy's short story collection, Devotions. And as you know, I like to ask people, is there any object that's with you in the writing of the book? And so Lucy told me about a particular and special book that was with her during the writing of Devotions. I've also got a bit of extra content for you, and this is a snippet from my close read that I do of some of Lucy's work. So on my Patreon site, what I've done, I've really tried to go into and try and understand how Lucy does what she does, because we all know that she's a fantastic writer. So I tried to pick apart her mechanics a bit and done a close read of a passage from Devotions. If you'd like to hear that close read in full, it's about 20 minutes. It's a private Patreon podcast. There's a link in my show notes where you can find out more, and you get other benefits of joining the Patreon too, with a paid subscription every month. Or you can buy the close read separately too. Delighted to have you on the Rippling Pages. Don't forget to leave a review if you enjoyed this or any other episode. But otherwise, let's get into it. The writing has this really transcendent quality. And I think the thing is that part of this writing's mystery, and part of writing's mystery in more general, is that it's mysterious in that it avoids an explanation of what it is it's trying to describe, because its subject matter is trying to demonstrate how some things in life are simply unexplainable, and are simply unexplainable in the way that we experience them in the everyday. So I think this is something that Anton Chekhov does, and that's a writer that Christ, Lucy, goodness me, I mean, Lucy referenced a lot of writers. If you looked at the show notes, the reference points, there's a lot of writers and musicians, but a writer that we came back to quite a lot was Anton Chekhov. And when you read, when I read Chekhov in some of his stories, what I find is that I'll be reading him, and it'll be quite an unremarkable looking passage. Not in the sense of the writing's brilliant, but it'll be in a kind of a domestic setting, or featuring two characters having a conversation, and you're reading the story, and all of a sudden you just realise that you're not in the same place as you were physically, not emotionally either. I don't think it's emotional, but both the story and you as a reader have suddenly been taken on this very quick journey, and it's kind of in a psychological space, but it's also in some sense how the everyday can appear to be transcendent and reveal little moments of, well, we don't quite know what. It's the idea, though, of how we try and communicate what, because it's not religious, but I think it's spiritual. And I'm not expert on spirituality, but it's a theory on it. It's a thing that's not quite there, but is there, or might be there. I don't know how Chekhov does it. Maybe we'll look at him one day. Maybe we'll really try and pick it apart. But I think part of that is part of this mystery that we're talking about. And it is this idea that some things, the way we're experiencing things, can't be explained. And the way that we grasp at them is just out of our reach sometimes. But it's how these two writers, Chekhov and Lucy, communicate that idea of things being out of our reach. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can. We've set a stall out, haven't we? Let's see if we can have a look at it. So it's Devotions, and basically this story. Okay, on the Ripping Pages, regular listeners will know that we like to finish off with a question about an object of influence. So this could be anything that's been with you in the writing of the book that we're talking about. This might be a desk object, it might be a really important book, and I think it is an important book by what you're holding on your lap. But Lucy, can you tell us about something that influenced you in the writing of this text?
Yeah, so the very first story in the collection is called Hamlet, a love story. It's about a young experimental Belfast theatre troupe taking their punky production of Hamlet to New York. And this is the very battered, annotated edition of Hamlet.
Is it which Arden?
It's the
Is it an Arden
edition,
Shakespeare?
Yeah, edited by Harold Jenkins. And it's covered in my penciled annotations because I had the idea for the play, and then I spent weeks and weeks and weeks just reading Hamlet, because to write that story well, I had to know it as well as those young people who knew every word, who had memorized it, who'd acted it, who'd embodied it. And I remember, and I had a whole paper on this play at university, and I didn't think I knew the play at all. And I read it, and I remember one day stumbling out of my study and saying to my husband, this is going to sound really silly, but I think Shakespeare was actually a genius. Newsflash. But I think it's interesting because Hamlet, is very zeitgeisty at the moment with the adaptation of the Maggie O'Farrell novel, Hamlet. But what's extraordinary is this is a capacious enough play that it can contain, it can absorb, it can allow all these very, very different versions.
Yeah.
And I thought that the thing that your listeners might like to see is that I have, I spent weeks and weeks researching a story, and I've got one moment where I've made a penciled annotation. I say page 245, Act 2, Scene 2, Hamlet's book, CYOA, exclamation mark. And this is one of those things where the stage direction is just Hamlet walks in reading. He's reading a book. And if you're an actor, of course, or a director, you need to make a choice about what that book is. Your choice might be that you have a sort of obscure leather-bound book, you know. Your choice might be that he's reading Dan Brown, but whatever it is, it will be a choice. And so I was thinking, what book is Hamlet reading? And then I was thinking, this is a great play of, predestination and free will. And so I thought, okay, he's reading Choose Your Own Adventure. And I still remember the moment that I realized that and made the decision, something unlocked for me about what their production would be. And so it's one of those funny things where it's like in a very banal penciled moment is captured the essence of the story.
And that is the essence of the book and the essence of the structure. And it's one of those little, as you said, Easter eggs, little kind of these unconscious perhaps reminders of where the influence for these stories came from. And it is very zeitgeist at the moment. Taylor Swift as well, is bringing Ophelia into the consciousness. Well, fantastic. I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that in, Lucy. Where are you going next with your writing? What's coming up?
Well, I've actually just finished a non-fiction book, which I never thought I would write. I almost never write non-fiction. I find it very exposing. I find fiction far freer. But I've written a non-fiction book, and it is actually a book about the writing of my Hamlet story. It's a sort of book on writing and on why write, and it's far more memoir-y than I ever thought I would write. So yes, I've been thinking a lot about Hamlet.
So that's what I mean. I found that you've written a book. You've written a story about Hamlet, a fiction book, a fictional story about Hamlet. You've annotated this version of Hamlet, and now you're writing the non-fiction version of why you wrote that story. And now all of this personal stuff is coming to the fore about personal inspiration.
Yeah, I'm using the story really as a sort of aperture, as a prism. Rather than doing a sort of how to write, which is so pompous and grandiose. I'm just doing a sort of through the creative and practical decisions of this story.
Yeah,
these are what they were. These are how I negotiated them. These are some of the problems. These are some of the things from my personal life, from my own rag and bone chip of the heart that this particular story demanded. But yeah, it's demanded a lot of memoir. It's demanded a lot of metaphysics. It's been really absorbing to write.
Well, until then, at least we've got your short stories. You use the word aperture, don't you, in your stories in a very key moment. But
I think,
I love that word of when the light gets let in and the light. Very image for your writing. I think this the way light seems to get in. But I think until then, at least, we have these brilliant short stories published once again by Faber and Faber. Lucy, it has been my absolute honour and pleasure to speak to you on the Rippling Pages. Thank you so much for being so candid and open about your work. And thank you, Faber, for hosting us as well. And Kaylee for setting all this up. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. But for now, on the Rippling Pages, not Kaylee, sorry. For now, on the Rippling Pages, Lucy Caldwell, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Kaylee, thank you for joining us.